Greetings gamers, I'm Mark.
And I'm Manuel.
And welcome to Tabletop Throwdown. Manuel, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, how are you?
I am doing well, thank you. Thank you. So, we've got some good discussion today.
We do. We had a great demo in our last video of Warhammer Fireteam. If you missed that, please check our links down below and do have a look at that. We'd appreciate it. It was a great game.
It was a lot of fun. What did you think as the Primaris Space Marines and the Tau faced off, as the game unfolded? What did you think about our strategy and our tactics and how the two armies played out?
Well, it played pretty nicely. I liked the game the way it gave you a lot of tactical options. As fairly simple and streamlined as the rules are, you still do have a lot of tactical variations and options available to you, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, you have a couple of choices in there to make every turn. I also like the objective cards. They gave it a bit of extra flavor, which was cool. I feel like every board game has a parameter of decision making, and I felt like this had a fair amount and kept it interesting. What about you?
I agree. I think there was a lot of tactical choice available. I also enjoyed how the forces seemed very well balanced against each other. It didn't seem like one side or the other was super overbalanced, super overpowered. We each had limitations. We each had special abilities that worked out to our advantage and restrictions that worked out to our disadvantage, such that both sides felt, I thought, fairly balanced.
Yes, I mean, your Tau shooting was super powerful, but you did have a very limited number of troops on the board.
Correct.
And taking that Space Marine save and knocking it back up to a 4+ changed things as well. You couldn't, I couldn't just rely on them being an easy take a hit left and right and not have to worry about it. And that's a little bit how I played initially, and then I soon realized it's not Warhammer 40K exactly. I need to be a little bit more cautious.
Right. Another thing that I looked at was, or that I enjoyed about the game, was it came right down to the wire. It was not a foregone conclusion from the beginning, like it sometimes is in other games where from the first roll you know pretty much who's going to win.
Or even the setup. Yeah,
or even during the setup. In this game, it was anybody's game right till that last dice roll.
Absolutely. I mean, I had that option to count as 2 for the objective at the end, and I found myself in a very unique and interesting predicament. I was determined to either turtle and stall and make you come to me and try to shoot you and then go for a tie, or come on out guns blazing, hope one of my guys still lived, and try to take the match 2-1 with the objective in the center. You still had a ton of VP from other cards though. And I went for guns blazing. It didn't work out, but it was fun to have it not be myopic. I was able to really have to decide what I wanted to do. And for a board game of this nature, a board minis game hybrid, which I call it, I think that was enjoyable.
It was, and that gets back to our tactical options discussion that we had earlier. You had a lot of options in front of you. You chose one. It did partially work out very well for you. I was just flabbergasted how quickly I lost my drone. I mean, you wiped that drone off the board almost instantly, which blew me away. That drone would have given me a lot of options down the road. You curtailed a whole broad range of things that I could have chosen from just by taking that drone out immediately.
I did not fully realize this.
Yeah,
that was fascinating.
I was very saddened to see it go so fast. So,
and what about the plasma pistol overcharge too? That was a factor as well, being able to really bump up the damage that I was dishing out with that guy.
Right, and exactly that leads back into the whole all the options they have available to you, just like you would in a regular full flavor tabletop game.
Yeah. And I will add, the extra damage I took from that plasma pistol from overdoing those shots, overcharging, could have been a factor as well. So there's so many nuances of decisions that they kind of pack into a box here, which is fun.
Well, and that kind of leads to another thought for me, is that just like any other tabletop war game, there's really, in spite of all the strategizing and all the skill that may or may not be involved on the part of the player, it still comes down to dice rolls. There's still that element of luck, just like there is in any other game. Sometimes your dice roll hot, sometimes your dice roll cold. I'm a perfect example of that. One minute I'm blazing away, the next second I can't dodge anything to save my life.
And I enjoyed that this was like Kill Team and Warcry. It's distant cousins in the sense that you're shooting for those crits. You're trying to get those crits. You're deciding what weapon to use in a certain circumstance, knowing that those crits can push you over the edge and make a difference. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Overall, there's probably a little bit less maneuvering in our particular game. In the demo, there's probably a little bit less moving of figures than I would have thought initially coming into it, especially given that my Tau are relatively slippery. They're pretty fast, or they can be fast if they're played that way. And I kind of didn't do as much maneuvering as I thought I would do. How'd you feel about that?
I have several thoughts on that. One element was even a person who commented on our last video said, why didn't you get in and engage them in melee a little bit more? Use your sword. And but you hit hard enough in melee as well, but going toe-to-toe with shooting was not a good choice. I felt like when it comes to maneuverability, it felt board gamey to me, unfortunately, in the sense that it felt slow. When you're playing Warcry and you have an orc moving across the board, and then you've got a gore grunter or cavalry shooting across the board, I didn't see that variance with this, and I didn't quite like how that felt.
Interesting. And then I thought that we were a little rough at the start because we were just getting into it, but once we got into the swing of the game, the rhythm of the game, I thought it went really smoothly.
Yeah, I thought it went smoothly as well. You know, they put in the box everything you need to track everything so nicely, and it's just, I feel like they thought out the game when it comes to the mechanics of being user-friendly quite well. I also really like the APL, or the AP points, where you can balance out those Tau by allowing them to still continue shooting. I do have one other concern with the system, though, if I may, if we want to kind of segue a little bit into just how we feel about the game in general.
Sure.
Skirmish games rely heavily on cover, and I wasn't a fan to a full extent of how they did cover in this game. I think it teaches people line of sight very well. Someone coming new to the game can learn how line of sight works, can learn how cover versus blocking versus open space is. That was great. But when you're in cover, as you know, you get an automatic save, but it reduces the number of dice you roll for your save. And I felt like that made units a bit squishy and made cover less tactically appreciative to me. But and you may be thinking this, Manuel, but I also feel like they wanted the game to not take too long. And
I think there's definitely an element of that, and I get into that when I say streamlining. That's kind of what I mean. They've simplified things, streamlined things so that it plays quicker. It probably does take away some of the nuance that you might see in other game systems regarding things like cover, even potentially things like line of sight. Line of sight here is really simplified compared to some game systems.
Right.
Most tabletop games out there have some concept of cover in one form or another, but they all handle a little bit differently. And so it didn't bother me as much specifically in detail how this game covered it, but I can see where you're getting at in that it seemed a little clunky in some ways comparatively to some other kinds of systems or some other ways they could have handled it in this particular rule set. So it didn't bother me too much. Apparently it was more of an issue for you.
Just something I noted. So I felt like they did provide a fair amount of cover. It just wasn't quite as effective as I wanted it to be. But I agree with your streamlining comments, and I agree with your perspective that it still added that element to the game. Yeah. We didn't disregard cover, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I liked overall about this game as a system is that it really does feel like a true tabletop game. You called it a hybrid earlier, which is an excellent way of putting it. But it really does have the feel of a tabletop game. The prefab map, there's two of them, the board is double-sided, does have a substantial amount of terrain on it that is cover, a fair amount of terrain on it that is blocks line of sight altogether, so you can hide behind it, be completely safe and so forth, just as many other game systems have. And so both of the maps that are available to you in this game are just littered, festooned with all kinds of cover and blocking terrain, making things like line of sight be issues that you have to be mindful of. So I did get a real tabletop feel to it, I thought.
Good. Let's talk about taking this home. But when you grab it, where is this available, Manuel?
Well, I got my copy at Barnes & Noble. It is apparently a Barnes & Noble exclusive. You do see it occasionally pop up on eBay. And it might even potentially be available in other retail outlets online in particular, but it is presently, as I understand it, a Barnes & Noble exclusive. That's the primary place you would look for it.
And I've seen comments on Facebook from our friends overseas and our viewers overseas in England, Ireland, Australia, Japan, wishing they could get a hold of this a little easier. So I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity for Games Workshop. Not that they want to flood it into every store and into their GW stores, but put it on the website so people can order it. You know, I think that's unfortunate that they put this level of time into a game and then they kind of make it that limited.
Well, and I think that this game really helps to, this particular game, Fireteam, helps to set up a kind of a Warhammer on-ramp for Games Workshop. Getting into the main game of Warhammer 40K, as most folks are well aware, is a massive investment of time, energy, money, buying forces, painting forces, building forces, terrain, all these things, plus learning the rules. There's a real massive commitment into getting into Warhammer 40K. This is like an extreme Warhammer light, something that you get into quickly, something that you could buy, assemble, and have on the table within a day, less than a day.
Yeah,
it passes, as you
it
call it,
passes the birthday test.
The birthday test.
A little bit of effort for the parents that day, but still they can open it up in the afternoon and play it that night.
So with something like this available, folks that would otherwise be put off by the massive investment into Warhammer 40K can actually get a Warhammer quote-unquote game for a much lower investment in both time, energy, and money. They can start playing. They get a couple forces in the box, and if they like one of them, say for example they like the Marines, then they can start expanding. Buy another set of Marines, or even just use the Marines that you have, and you can upgrade, so to speak, to Kill Team. Mm-hmm. Once you've played some Kill Team, you've gotten some terrain, you've got most of what you need to go to the next step, which is Warhammer 40K. You buy a few more units, you buy a little bit more terrain, shazam, now you're in the range of playing Warhammer 40K. So this game, very sneakily, I think, establishes a very smooth, easy entry onto that ramp that could potentially get more folks into the Warhammer 40K universe.
I think those are good points, but I could say that I think they could have made it smoother, and this is how. I don't know if they were quite sure why they wanted to put in the extra stat cards for the other armies. I'm glad they did, because that enabled us, experienced gamers, to go on eBay. You graciously picked up some Tau, and we were able to field something different. Let's say you and I were brand new to the Warhammer 40K universe. We get these extra cards. We don't know what units to buy, not necessarily how to put them together, what we need to put them together. I think GW missed a fine opportunity for expansion boxes for this game, where a few months after this came out, they have some push-fit orcs or some Imperial Guard, and put those cards in that box. Because Barnes & Noble's game selection is excellent now. It rivals a lot of game stores. And I see the Blitz Bowl teams on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, right? They should have team expansions for Fireteam, in my opinion. They put those cards in the box. That made it appealing to us as experienced gamers, but it's a bit of a conundrum for people that have no idea what to do with that.
Yeah, for myself, as an experienced gamer, I liked having the cards for their replay value, for the fact that you could then add forces readily, such as the Tau, the Imperial Guard, the other forces that are available in this game. So you could quickly, if you know what to do, pick them up and go. Yeah. But I could see how for new people, folks that aren't familiar with the genre, with tabletop wargaming in general even, that would be more of an impediment than anything else. And so your point regarding them having had the opportunity to release expansions over time is well taken. They could have done that. They chose not to, or at least they haven't thus far as of this recording. So it'll be interesting to see what happens down the road, if this goes anywhere further than it already has. Right,
if this is a one and done, or if they maybe release some new boards, or another concept, or a second wave. On the note of, but hopefully it sparked curiosity for people at least, yes. And maybe some motivation to get on a Facebook group or get on Discord and say, hey, how do I grab these Imperial Guard? I really want to try this. Right. However, when it comes to enhancing interest, if this is truly for people brand new to the universe, the 40K lore is so rich and amazing. There was nothing in the box for that other than a catalog. I wanted a short story or something that the kids can read while the parents are putting this together to really make them future gamers.
That was a really interesting omission here. I noticed that as well. It didn't bug me apparently as much as it bugged you, but I did notice that one of the things that's big about the Warhammer 40K universe is the lore. A full half to maybe a little bit more than half of the Warhammer 40K rulebook is nothing but lore. This one had virtually none. Maybe just a short blurb, maybe a paragraph or so, if even that, in the rulebook, and that was it. It would have been really nice if they'd had a pamphlet or some kind of a flyer or something that could have introduced some of the wider world of Warhammer. Given that this is such an obviously introductory kind of a game, something like that would have been really nice and appreciated.
One thing I wanted to add in that I forgot to mention earlier was there's no list building and there's no points that you have to mess with this, which was really enjoyable and maybe a good segue for who is this game for, because I'm rethinking some of my final thoughts here in the sense that sometimes you just want to not have to overthink things and you can put stuff on the table and you know what 5 minis you're using. But let's discuss this, Manuel. We've talked about what it's like to bring this box home. It does fit everything in the box nicely. I think you noted that earlier.
Yeah, the box is structured internally very well. There's a couple trays in there that hold all the parts and pieces very neatly, very tidily. There's slots for you to put the finished minis once they're assembled. So the internal structure of the box is very nicely done.
Yeah. So Manuel, I'm in the elevator at KubaCon or Adepticon, and I say, what's Fireteam like? And you've got 20 seconds to fill me in before the door opens. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Who's this game for?
Who's this game for? What I would say is something like this. This is a quick and easy one-box game set in the Warhammer 40K universe that can be enjoyed by anyone with even a passing interest in the setting and in tabletop wargaming in general.
Cool.
So, who do you think this game is intended for?
Well, I think this game is primarily intended for new players that want to expand their board game horizons and are curious about the Warhammer universe. And I give it a solid 8 out of 10 for people that that fall in that category. Gameplay, 8.5, but I subtracted a little bit because of the lack of context for them. When it comes to experienced wargamers, let's just chat about that a moment as for who this game is for. My son's a tournament Age of Sigmar player. He watched our last video, he enjoyed the video, and he said, I don't think I'd play that. So, if it is, he really felt that Warcry or Kill Team was more his speed. So if you are an experienced wargamer, you may want to run this by your group before you rush out and buy it. Say, hey, do you want something to wind down a nice game night with? Do you want something to introduce this to your partner? Do you want something to play where we can play it at work on our lunch break and not have to mess with list building and just have a quick match? But for experienced wargamers, it may be a hit. For new players, new to the Warhammer universe, it's a solid product.
Let me piggyback off of that because your point is excellent. There's a couple different audiences for this game. For experienced wargamers that wants something quick and easy to throw together and go. The game, probably usually less than 45 minutes, which is very short for a tabletop game overall. You just want a quick fix, something that goes by really fast, that doesn't take much setup, doesn't take much teardown. You just want to get something on the table and throw some dice. This could fit the bill for an experienced gamer, for that specific niche application.
Yes, I agree. And alpha gamers, as we know, are always looking for new ways to get people into the hobby. So if you have a partner that may want to try something a little lighter, kids, friends at work that grew up on, unfortunately, Monopoly and have never expanded their board game horizons, it's an option. Exactly. So if you enjoyed watching the demo, consider putting Fireteam in your gaming rotation.
So that was our discussion of our Fireteam demo. We hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe down below.
Yes, we'll see you next time with something brand new.
Take care.
Thank you.